Hi there. I'm Sherry Johnson. I'm with Watauga County Arts Council and Blue Ridge Art Space. And I want to welcome you back to a series that we have been doing for a few weeks now. I hope you're one of our regular viewers. If you are, then just welcome back. If you're not one of our viewers, let me tell you, if this is your first time, let me tell you a little bit about what you're seeing. The Blue Ridge ArtStream is a project that was begun when a young man named Lucas Treba came to me and contacted me and said he was concerned about artists who had lost their livelihood during the COVID-19 shutdown. And if you're depending on gigs or selling art for a livelihood to pay your bills, then there was no option. There was no one going out to places that you could do the performances or that kind of thing. So their money had just stopped. So Lucas was concerned about it, and he came up with the idea of, could we do some sort of benefit event? Well, we both pulled together a really sharp group of folks. There's 7 or 8 of them, and in a series of of Zoom meetings and messenger meetings, and just kind of electronically, we all put together a project, and we're calling it Blue Ridge ArtStream. And what it is a series of benefit events every Saturday night at 7 p.m. here on our Facebook page. And we are presenting not just music. That was so you might think that when you hear live concert, but this is not just music. We are showing you the plethora, the collage of artists that are all through this community. We have so many artists in our community and so many different kinds of art in our community that we're trying to showcase that and give you kind of a sampling of all those different things. So we started out with music, and then the next thing we did was we did visual art, and tonight we're turning in a completely different direction. Well, we're making the turn during tonight's event, actually, from visual to literary, and you'll know what I mean in a little bit. But so this is a kind of a neat event. While you're watching, there'll be some links on there. One of them is where you can donate to the Artist Relief Fund if you'd like to do that. We really appreciate your money. What we're doing with that fund is gathering it together, and when we've got enough to make a difference, and we're getting there, then we will put out a call to artists and say, if you'd like to apply, please apply. Here's the application. We'll have a board of people that'll check it out, and then we'll give some money out to some artists that need it. So you can help with that. The other thing is last week, Lauren Waterworth was our artist, and she painted a rhododendron right in front of your eyes. And that rhododendron is on eBay. It's been on auction all week long, and the auction ends at 7:30 tonight. So we also have a link posted for that, so you can go and check out that painting and make that. Some of us will hang on to the last minute and put that last bid in there. You may be one of those people, so this may be your opportunity. But you don't want to miss what's coming up, so you got a dilemma there. But at any rate, tonight's artist is someone that I've known for 27 years, and the creativity just oozes out of this person. When she put her creativity through one method of demonstrating her through one arts method was sort of changed, or she wasn't able to do it, she just turned and did something else. And so I'm going to let her tell her story. But I think you're going to really enjoy meeting Mary Rose Carroll. So Mary Rose, are you there? There she is.
Yeah. How you doing?
Doing okay.
I'm doing just fine. Yes, you're right. It's been 27 years. Isn't that amazing?
We're not that old.
But isn't this unique? Look at how creative you are. All those 27 years I've known you, you have directed the Watauga Arts Council, and you've done all incredible things.
Oh.
Brought in artists. You brought in also writers. High Country Writers meets there when it's open. It's just amazing how you have shepherded that organization.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so you deserve it. Yeah, and you're going to be glad too. No.
But we're going to replace me with somebody really cool. So, and you can go in new directions. And so that's what this is all about. And I there's always changes in life. So now, speaking of changes in life, now you had a big change in your life, and we've got a little video that explains really the basic story. We want to start with that, and we're going to let you finish off with sharing with us some of what you're doing. Does that sound good? Okay. All right. Let's check that video out.
I started sculpting when I was still working with clay. And what I was doing was making maybe about this high, maybe about 3 foot high, of these cylinder figures with sculptured tops out of clay. And I would send them to an exhibit, and the problem was in clay and transportation, they would be broken. So I realized if I was going to continue in that direction, I had to weld. And so I made the shift from working with clay, which I liked very much, into working with metal. At various times, I had little bumps of being sick from grinding metal dust. The biggest problem that I had over the years was because I was doing arc welding. In the summertime, when I was working on one particular project, and it was just on and on, endless welding, and it was so hot because the metal's getting hot, you're getting hot, I wore a shirt that wasn't leather. I had cloth over me, but it did not keep that sunlight out. And so as a result, it was right here, I got about more than a quarter size. Fortunately, it was not malignant. My body had just thrown all those cells into one place and just kept it right there. The transition from leaving welding into what I first went into was painting. But it was a difficult thing, and I continued to try to get large-scale commissions even after I knew I shouldn't be welding anymore. I liked some of the results, and people liked the results of the painting, but it didn't give me the satisfaction that the large-scale sculpture had given me. Now that I'm writing, I find that writing is easier than anything, and it just ticks right along. The idea of the scale that I've lost is now made up for by the fact that I'm trying in my writing to preserve something. If I don't get it down, it'll be lost. It won't exist. Today we have a comfortable, happy world to live with the other, except we haven't really ascended into living beyond the scope of our time and our place. So I think that's the most important thing, to tell people, you know, you think this life is over. Don't live it for this life. Live it for eternity.
And it'll help you and worthy artists. It'll help you in your spirit if you donate to the General Artist Fund, which you can see on the scroll below me. Now, that video was made 7 years ago. And in that time, I've done several books. And I had today an experience which reminded me of the very different nature between the visual arts, sculpture particularly, and writing. And what happened today was I have a pergola I bought that had to be assembled, and I needed to put in anchor screws down at ground level to hold it down. Well, I pulled out an old concrete drill I hadn't used in 20 years. It still worked, but the chuck key was gone, and I was stopped right there because of one material thing. I couldn't go forward till I get a chuck key. Now, in writing, it's imaginative, and you may break a pencil or you may run out of paper, but those are easy to remedy, so that the imagination that's in writing in a way is pure. You don't have to deal with matter, which can be very stubborn, that you have in sculpture. But I'm going to jump right now to my latest writing, and it is just what I said in that video. It's trying to catch something that will be gone if I don't have it. And it's from this community I live in, Bethel. People in Watauga don't know much about Bethel. But if you could imagine, you're living in a community where you know everybody, but not just that. You know everybody's grandparents, and not just that. You know everybody's great-grandparents' lives. So for instance, down the way, my neighbor, Stanley Wilson, he has a long musket in his house that's from the Revolutionary War. And it was one of his relatives who built this house in 1887. And it was local logs, and the sawmill was across where the road is now. It's gone. It used to be powered by water. That's the continuity that exists in this community. And I've never seen it anywhere else the same way as it is in Bethel. And this writing is about my neighbor, who I wish she was still here, Mama Grace Eggers. I'm going to read just a short part of it from you, for you about it. It's going to be published very soon in the High Country Writers Anthology. Have you ever known an Appalachian woman? Envision an old lady with curlers in her hair, riding a lawnmower, waving a broom overhead, and yelling like a banshee. This was my dear neighbor, Grace. She was not crazy, and it wasn't a game. Acting like John Wayne, rounding up livestock, she was protecting her treasured garden. A neighbor's cow had worked through the fence, and his 1 ton of black heft was stomping mishmash in her vegetables and flowers. Knowing cows, he'd probably leave a cow pie, okay, on her dear spinach. Spinach, peas, and cucumbers were started after a neighbor had plowed her soccer-sized field. Then she furrowed, planted seeds, watered, and cared for those plants as though they were her children who would feed and sustain her. And they did. She would go to town once a month and only buy flour and sugar. Everything else came out of her garden. Okay? The garden's care meant vigilance against enemies. And these were the weather and critters. Deer were not such a problem because Grace was surrounded by cattle. But raccoons and groundhogs, these were the night culprits who would come in to feed off of her work. And her defense was her dog, Princess. Now, Princess was a good hunter, the size of a heavy collie with long sandy hair, but Princess didn't like night work. Oh, I felt her resistance one twilight when I helped Grace. It took all the strength of 2 tall women dragging her to the waiting chain. That dog was hugging the ground for all it's worth. And of course, Grace would also shoot at critters from her 2nd floor window. This was a woman who was incredible. She was creative. She did great quilts. She did not have much to sustain her. And yet, for more than 30 years, she went on as a widow. And she sustained herself by hook or crook. And a lot of it was raising children for neighbors, taking care of them during the day, which is why they called her Mama Grace. But this is my last writing, and Grace was such a special person. I would hate to think that nobody would ever know of her particular qualities and her strength and her valor. And I said at the end of my writing how she picked everything for a funeral. She picked the scripture, she picked the clothes, she picked which of the 2 Beaver Dam Baptist cemeteries she was going to be in. She had it all arranged. And when I went there and I sat down on that pew, I did not expect how I would start to sob at the loss of Grace. And the church was filled with cheeks that were wet, knowing a Grace that had been among us had flown away. I'm sure you have had experiences like that. Maybe not quite like Bethel, because it is a unique place, but experiences like that. And don't let them be lost. Don't try to put them down. You can always come to High Country Writers. People will help you write. There's a lot of proofreaders and a lot of editors who are in this town who help people put their first books together, as they did me. Now I've got 4 books. So it's always possible, but it's a shame to lose a treasure that you had just because you did not write it down or put it into a memoir by speaking it into, some recording device. Now, I've been lucky all my life to create, whether sculpture, drawings, or books. There's 4 books now. And I've been able to always work from a positive mode doing those things because it gave me the ability to do what I wanted to do. And I think if we had a world full of people who were able to express themselves either creatively or in athletics, some way that they could find that they were having an outlet for themselves, I think we'd have a better world. I really do. But we have to also realize that we're just going through a period that is different from anything I've written about, pretty much different from anything I've read about.
Hi, Mary Rose. You didn't expect to see me, did you?
I don't see either of us.
I'm Wes Wall, and I am a technical assistant with the Blue Ridge ArtStream. And Cherry seems to have lost connection with us. So I thought you and I would maybe finish this segment up. Actually, you and I have known each other quite a long time as well.
Yes, we have. And I've told you this, I love the color in all your prints and your watercolors. And I just think your color is outstanding.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That was a wonderful passage. Facing retirement this weekend, I did a lot of reflection on my whole connection with the Appalachian culture and both the environment and the Appalachian culture of the native people here. And that really touched me to hear you read of the Bethel story. And there's so many rich and varied stories of the people and the strength of the people in this area, which kind of allows us to look at what we're dealing with now, as you mentioned, and put it in a little bit of perspective. When we look back not too many decades ago, how difficult life would have been up here in this remote area, and your writings beautifully reflect on that. So I want to thank you for doing that tonight.
My pleasure.
We're going to continue with Blue Ridge ArtStream events. And as Cherry mentioned when she came on, they're very diverse. We have a lot of music. We have possibly some dance coming up. We have visual artists coming up to talk about some of their processes. And one of the things that's wonderful about what you presented tonight that I really love personally is how artists often transition between different mediums. Between not only mediums in visual art, such as watercolor or pastel or oil, but to branch out into another arena like you with sculpting and painting. And then some artists, I know one of the things that I've noticed about visual artists as they get older, many of them launch into music and learn to play an instrument. I've always been fascinated with the writings of Lee Smith, and finding that she and Clyde Edgerton then formed a band later on in her writing career. So it's great to see how artists transition. There's an urge, I think, to keep exploring and to not have boundaries around ourselves. So it'll be interesting to see what else you come up with.
Well, there's also the child inside artists, and that child has a sense of wonder, and so it wants to learn new things. Yes, absolutely. But I didn't know that about Lee Smith.
Yep. It's quite interesting. But we're going to end here shortly, but I want to remind all the folks watching tonight that Amanda, our intern, has put links to a number of things in the chat room. The eBay auction with a beautiful rhododendron painting that Lauren did last week that should be going up for auction, the auction should be ending soon. And believe me, I think it's worth a whole lot more than right now is currently bid on it. So we hope those bids are driven up here. And we also have a link in the Facebook Live top of the link here about how to donate to the General Artists Fund, which Mary Rose has graciously agreed to try to raise some money for us tonight through the broadcast. And we'll figure out where Cherry went in the great virtual beyond, and we'll have her back on hopefully next week and figure out any issues. But thanks everyone for joining us tonight, and we're gonna check out on you here. But thank you very much, Mary Rose, and you have a great weekend.
You do the same, Wes. You do the same. Always good to see you.
Thank you. You too.